European plane maker Airbus is one half of the duopoly that dominates commercial aviation, the other company, of course, being American manufacturer Boeing. For those working in the industry or have years of experience being plane spotters and avgeeks, identifying commercial aircraft can come quite easily. This is definitely not the case for others, who might need a little guidance on how to identify and make distinctions between various types. Today we're going to go over Airbus's commercial passenger jets and how you'll be able to identify each one. So let's get started. Going in numerical order, let's start with the Airbus A300 and A310. As Aircraft Recognition Guide notes, the general appearance of the A300, A310 and A330 are the same. Features common among these jets are the last cockpit window having a cut-off top corner with a straight underside, a section of cabin windows on the rear fuselage sloping upwards, and a flat-topped rear fuselage towards and under the tail. The A300 and A310 typically have small triangular winglets known as wingtip fences. Unfortunately, not all A300s or A310s have these, but many do. Others may have no winglets at all. When it comes to passenger variants of these jets, A300s have 3 large doors across the fuselage with an additional small emergency door behind the wing. The A310, being a shorter aircraft, has just 2 main doors on each side, with 1 small emergency door just above the wing. At this point, we've mentioned several characteristics that are also mostly shared with the A320 family of aircraft. Indeed, older A320 family aircraft are also equipped with wingtip fence winglets. However, the A300 and A310 are wide-body aircraft as opposed to the single-aisle narrow-body A320 family of jets. It's hard to describe the difference in width in words, but the A300 and A310 would look more bloated than compared to the slimmer A320 family. Additionally, when landing gear is down, the A300 and A310 have what are known as double bogies, 2 sets of wheels for each set that comprise the main landing gear. Meanwhile, A320 family aircraft going from the A319 to A321 all have single bogies or 1 set of wheels. Of course, complicating things is the fact that Air India has a few special A320s that are equipped with double bogies as part of their main landing gear, but this is a very rare exception to the rule. Moving on to the A320 family, this consists of 4 members, the A318, 319, 320 and 321. When looking at the family in general, we again have the last cockpit window with a cut-off top corner and straight underside. As mentioned previously, older members of this family have wingtip fence winglets, although newer models are fitted with tall L-shaped blended winglets. Members of this family also have fairly round noses that bulge out from under the cockpit. This is different than the Boeing 737, which has a more pointed nose, or the A350, which has a nose that blends into the cockpit. After this, it's a matter of fuselage length and number of doors and windows. We're going to avoid listing the number of windows for each aircraft, since it's unrealistic to count in order to identify an airplane. However, when it comes to doors, here is how each family member compares. The A318 and A319 have 2 main doors, 1 at the front and 1 at the rear. In the middle, just above the wing, is a small emergency exit door. Sadly, telling the A318 and A319 apart is only possible with fuselage length and the number of windows. Without being too specific, we can say that the A318 is a much more short and stubby aircraft compared to its slightly longer sibling. For the A320, the fuselage is, unsurprisingly, even longer. Instead of 1 small emergency exit door on each side like its smaller siblings, the A320 has a set of 2 small overwing exits on each side, in addition to 1 main door at the front and 1 at the rear. The A321 takes things further, an even longer fuselage with more doors and windows. This family member is identified by having 4 large doors on each side of the fuselage. Of course, complicating things is the fact that A321s fitted with Airbus's cabin flex option have a different door layout. Instead of 4 large doors, these jets have one door at the front, a pair of smaller exits over the wing, a door behind the wing, and then another door close to the end of the fuselage, close to where the tail begins. As mentioned previously, all A320 family members have single bogie landing gear, with the exception of a few Air India aircraft. Distinguishing between an older CO or current engine option and NEO or new engine option can at times be tricky and fairly easy at other times. Here are some basic rules. CO jets will have wingtip fence winglets, while NEOs all have blended winglets. NEO jets have larger engines. From the front, this is simply a larger diameter and circumference. From a side perspective, CO engines will appear more stretched and rectangular, while NEO engines are more square in proportion. The cockpit mask is in general another effective way to tell COs and NEOs apart, but unfortunately there are complications and exceptions to this. Not all NEOs have the cockpit mask, while Germany's Eurowings Discover had decided to apply the cockpit mask to some of its A320 CO aircraft to give it that next-generation appearance. As a result, using this feature as a way to identify aircraft may prove accurate 90% of the time, but it's not guaranteed. Moving up in size again, we have the wide-body Airbus A330 and A340. Designed at the same time as a 2-in-1 program, the A340 is a larger version of the A330 with 4 engines instead of 2. Both the A330ceo and A340 have angular winglets. The only other Airbus aircraft sporting similar winglets is the much smaller A220, but we'll get to that jet later on. The A330ceo and A340 also have the last cockpit window sporting a cut-off top corner and straight underside. Being a larger aircraft than A320 family members, the A330 has a double bogie main landing gear. The A340, with its larger fuselage and additional engines, also sports a middle landing gear, which comes down right under the belly of the aircraft. The landing gear of the A330 and A340 also tilt backward when in the air. On each side, both the A330-200 and -300 have 3 large doors and 1 small emergency door. Thus, telling these 2 jets apart comes down to fuselage length and the number of windows. For the 4 members of the 4-engined A340, the -200, -300 and -500 all have 3 large doors and 1 smaller door behind the wing. The behemoth -600, on the other hand, has 4 large doors and 1 overwing exit on each side. The A330neo family consists of the A330-800 and -900. These aircraft can be identified by their unique composite winglets, which have a shallow bend. And just like older A330s, the -800 and -900 have landing gears that tilt back. These jets also wear a cockpit mask like other neo aircraft. Of course, Eurowings Discover again complicates this by painting cockpit masks on its older A330s. But it's not the only one, as Highfly has done this on one of its A330-300s. The -800 is shorter while the -900 is longer. Unfortunately, however, both variants have the same number of doors. However, since the -800 is so much more rare, chances are you're likely looking at a -900. Unless that aircraft has a Uganda Airlines or Kuwait Airways livery. The Airbus A350 is a fairly unique sight in the skies. It has a black cockpit outline or mask like other newer generation Airbus jets. However, its cockpit windows are quite different from other aircraft, as the windows are much more curved. The A350's nose is also unique from other Airbus aircraft in how it blends in with the cockpit rather than bulging out. Finally, this type's winglets have quite a distinct curve to them, not found on any other aircraft. While the -1000 is longer than the -900, they both unfortunately have the same number of doors on each side. However, the -1000 has triple bogie landing gear, while it's just double for the A350-900. Coming to the Super Jumbo A380, all we really need to say is that it has a second deck that stretches all the way to the back, So just look for 2 full rows of windows and you'll undoubtedly be looking at an Airbus A380. 4 engines and wingtip fence winglets can also be spotted for additional confirmation. And last up is the A220. While this jet wasn't designed by Airbus, we probably should include it anyways. The A220's nose is similar to the A350's in that it blends into the cockpit windows. Aside from this, the cockpit windows on the sides have a rounded bottom corner, and finally, these jets have angular winglets similar in shape to those found on the A330 and A340. So there's our crash course on how to tell different Airbus aircraft apart from each other. As you can see, distinguishing different size variants from one another may be the trickiest aspect, since some variants have the same number of doors. Indeed, spotting a longer fuselage from a shorter one is sadly just something that only comes about with practice. We're almost certain that we missed a few tips and tricks for identifying Airbus jets. If you have any more to add, please leave them in the comment section below. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.